Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name's Giusi. I am an intuitive healer, a hypnotherapist, and Reiki master. And I talk about all kinds of things that have to do with spirituality, our subconscious programming, healing from trauma, and as well as like my autistic experience and things like that. So thanks for joining me. If you haven't already, I would love it if you like this video and subscribe. So what are we going to talk about? I'm going to talk about being highly sensitive. So, if you are someone like me who is a late diagnosed autistic person, there is probably a great chance that you might have identified as like a highly sensitive person in the past or an empath and all these like terms and things like that. Now, there's a book, I think I've spoken about it in past videos, The Highly Sensitive Person, and I forget, I have the book somewhere back there, but it talks about like how we're so sensitive to all these things. And so I want to talk about that a lot and how there's so many of us that have these sensory, I guess, sensitivities, but I call it like having, like, it's not only just the sensory, um, you know, sensitivity that we're having, there's also like our clairs being in tune and stuff like that. And if you don't know what clairs are, you can look it up. But there's clairsentience, claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairaudience, I think, clair. I forget all the names right now, but it's the sensitivity and the ability to really to see those things or to feel them at a great amount, I guess you can say. So I'm clairsentient and claircognizance. And so clairsentience is the ability to feel things. So I can feel like people's emotions really, really, really strongly, but I also have claircognizance where I can just like know things sometimes. And I always like kind of describe it as like being tapped into a mainframe. People say like autistic people have just pattern recognition, and that because we have so much like neurons and it's constantly processing in our brains that we can just recognize patterns. However, I think that's like disservice because um, I think it's far more than that. And it's a conversation that a lot of people don't want to have. That's okay. But maybe some people are ready for that. And I feel always kind of liken it to being attached to like a mainframe and be able to like instantly download things and just have a knowing of these things. So here we are existing in a world that is just very neurotypical with these very like rigid paradigms that are meant to only exist in a very certain way to appease like, you know, the status quo or whatever you want to call it. And so there's no room for anything to stray outside of that. And so we now try to exist in this world where we already feel like we don't belong and don't fit in. And now we're like also kind of reacting to all these like sensory things that we're having, whether it's sounds, sights, smells, the feeling, just all these things. And so this can feel incredibly overwhelming for many of us. Now, before I knew that I was autistic, um, a neurocomplex or whatever you want to call it for you, however you identify as, um, I always, considered myself a highly sensitive person and an empath, someone who feels these things. And so the interesting thing about this is that once you get older, a lot of us end up finding out that we're autistic because of burnout. Now, people think that burnout occurs when you have a lot of stress and things happening constantly over time. But that's not in a neurotypical world. That could be very much true, in that they're just taking on too much and then they just need a rest and maybe have a couple of days of rest and they're cool. But for us, it's not like that. And it's something very much different. And so it'll be like, because you're just masking constantly, and that energy that it takes to mask continuously, especially not doing it consciously, but doing it subconsciously from birth, because you realize that existing as you was not very well received from people. So you learn how to just kind of exist in a way that mirrors everyone, in a way to get by, to not be kind of like, I guess you can say like ostracized or singled out and all those things. Like, it's funny because I talk about that a lot because we talk about narcissists who mask, but their masking is like different. Their masking is for a different reason, especially if they're like trying to like con you or love bomb you and things like that. Whereas like we're masking for a different reason. We're masking for protection and to help us not be singled out and attacked or bullied and things like that. And which is often what ends up happening when you do appear different and not like the norm, right? So here we are existing in this world, masking and, reacting to all these things. And so when you're someone who's very, very sensitive, which we are as autistic people, it can feel overwhelming and you feel that burnout. Now, something that people don't talk about enough is that the sensory overwhelm doesn't just happen when, like I said, bad things are happening or even just by masking a lot, but it could also happen when you're like good things are happening to you. This is the thing about sensory overwhelm. It happens with everything. It's lovely, isn't it? So if you feel like you've been having like wonderful things happening in your life, and this is something that you have to learn to do, especially if you're older and you have gone through your whole life not being diagnosed as an autistic person, if you feel like everything's going good, you might feel like your energy's through the roof and you're feeling like grand and going for everything, and you're feeling like elevated, serotonin levels are like through the roof and all that stuff. What is it? What is it? I can't even think. Is it oxytocin? What is it? The feel good. Oxytocin. Oxytocin, right? Is oxytocin. The oxytocin is like, am I saying that right? Is like through the roof when you're feeling good and stuff like that. So you might feel like so energetically inclined to do more and push yourself and stuff like that. And if you're an autistic person, especially if you're in burnout, you have to be really, really mindful of that, because when you're feeling good, you want to push through things. And there's two things occurring here. Is you're in burnout despite all those like things like making you feel really good right now. So it's still taxing on you. That's number one. And number two, all of that feel good stuff and all of the stuff that you're doing is still contributing to sensory overwhelm, even if it's something positive and good. And so you have to like really begin to be mindful of that, because then it'll start to show up in other things. So like might start having elevated anxiety or start to have panic attacks and things like that because of the overwhelm. So these are things to be mindful of. Being mindful of our sensitivities is something that is very real for us, unfortunately, and especially in a world that is not designed to accommodate that. This is a world that is like made to accommodate disconnect, wars, differences. Differences isn't the right word because we have differences, but disagreements and, just like having conflict and rigidness and all that stuff. But there's no accommodations, or quite frankly, there's no like support and, there's nobody that is, our paradigm is never made to support and to want to create like connections and softness and tenderness and community and all of that stuff, because we don't have that in our everyday surroundings. In fact, quite the opposite. When we're in this place of sensory overwhelm, we have to become mindful of that. We have to learn how to take the steps in order to give us the space that we need. We have to rest. We need to unwind. We need to unplug. We need to breathe deeper and do some breathing exercises. We need to make sure we like check out and have periods of time without like any sound and silence and stuff like that. We need to maybe sleep more. We need to hydrate. All of these things that we have to like be extremely mindful of, because it affects us differently than other people. And so you will learn that as you go along, unfortunately. But these are things that if you haven't already reached those places, then maybe just learn that now and recognize that, so that you can avoid getting to those places and finally being in a place of like overwhelm and feeling like frazzled in that place, or having terrible meltdowns or panic attacks or whatever that is for you. So anyways, so if you're someone who your sensitivities are, through the roof, which for me they are, then this will be like valuable for you to learn about this. Learn about what is your cutoff. What is your ceiling? Find out what that is for you and you might have to like practice a bit. You might not know that. You might, you know, especially if you're just learning like who you are, like you might need to figure out what that is for you and figure out where that line is for you and then pull back when you get there. And you have to ensure that you have people who are going to be able to support you and um, allow you to do that with softness, and they can give you that support that you need in that space. You need that. It's so important. So please like make sure you have people like that around you. And if you can't, then you're going to have to like really create firm boundaries around that. So like I said, rest, sleep, do breathing exercises, unplug, no sound. All of these things are very important, even if that means sitting in a quiet dark room for like an hour if you have to. Like these are going to become so important for you and for your self-care, for your well-being, if you are someone who has very, very, very highly sensitive sensory needs and experiences, etc., like that. So please take care of yourself. So I just wanted to chat a little bit about this. I'm curious what your experience is. I'm sharing this because I've been going through some stuff recently that have been great. I'm not gonna lie, but it's also I just feel like I kind of hit a wall all of a sudden, because I feel like it's been like, really good, and I haven't realized like how much I've been pushing through, because I am in burnout and I've just been like on constantly for like the last few weeks, and all of a sudden I feel like I've noticed that I've been feeling more of these things, and so I'm feeling it in my body and knowing that it's a lot. It's a lot what I've been feeling, and I need to like tone it down a bit, which is fine. It's just my recognition of that and learning how to like honor myself and set my own boundaries. And it's fine, because it has to do with me and my own boundaries. And that is really important, to maintain your boundaries and stuff like that. So let me know what your experience is with this. I'd love to hear like how you deal with this, and if it's something that you even notice and in your everyday life, and the things that you do to help support yourself in these things. But if you're not already doing these things to support yourself, then you're gonna have to get into the habit of doing it, because you can like literally like get really, really sick if you don't. Your body starts to become like really worn down. Sometimes you feel like when I'm like completely depleted, where I feel like my battery is like so drained, I'll feel like these kind of like flu-like symptoms, where I'm not sick, no virus, no nothing, but it's just that feeling. And for those of you that have had that, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's it. That's my video today. So about sensitivities, what that feels like, boundaries around that, and what we can do to help that. Share your experiences in the comments. Follow me for more. So subscribe to my channel if you can. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having an awesome day, and take care.